The Constitution Class Starship was a Starfleet heavy cruiser that was in service during the 23rd century. It was the premier line of ships in service for both exploration and military operations for Starfleet. Designed to operate without outside support, they are best known for their long deep space missions which usually lasted 5 years. In 2267 there were at least 12 of these vessels in service. These included Constellation, Defiant, Enterprise, Excalibur, Exeter, Hood, Intrepid, Lexington, and Potemkin. The most famous and celebrated of these starships was the U.S.S. Enterprise, launched in 2245 under the command of Robert April, although the ship gained its famed reputation during its 5-year mission under the command of Captain James T. Kirk. During these missions, the crews of the vessels charted new space and made contact with various civilizations for the first time. The mission parameters of which the Constitution was designed for meant that almost all vessels of its lineage operated on their own, and encounters between sister ships were far and few in between. In 2267, such an encounter took place when a large part of the class gathered at Starbase 11 to refit and conduct repairs. Although the class was highly successful in its mission and fulfillment of its design requirements, its design and use also meant that there was always a constant high loss rate among the class. This was due to the fact that these ships wandered unknown space and faced dangers never seen before or experienced by the Federation. This also meant that being assigned to one was a very hazardous assignment. In 2267, the U.S.S. Constellation fell victim to the Doomsday Machine and was destroyed. 2268 saw the loss of the U.S.S. Intrepid, and later that year the U.S.S. Exeter was lost when it was infected by a virus while orbiting Omega 4. All 3 of these starships were lost with all hands aboard. The Constitution class featured the trademark saucer engineering section and warp nacelle layout common to most Federation Starfleet vessels. Most ships of the class appeared to be identically the same, but looking at certain ships of the class at closer detail revealed tiny differences in their builds. The primary saucer section of the ship contained various science labs numbering some 14 in total. The officers' lounge and a dining area were also located in the saucer beneath the bridge superstructure. At least 7 turbolifts served the primary and secondary hulls of the ship. The design of the Constitution class allowed for separation of components during a crisis. Although not an aerodynamic ship, the Constitution class could break orbit and enter the atmosphere of an M-class planet and maintain altitude in the atmosphere as long as the ship could attain escape velocity for departure. The bridge of the Constitution class was located on Deck 1 at the top of the saucer section, a feature common on many other Starfleet vessels. From here, the commanding officer could oversee the ship's operations and be aware of the ship's condition easily. The bridge was served by a single turbolift to the rear of the deck, although in the refit configuration 2 turbolifts served the bridge. The Constitution class featured a standard warp drive of lithium and dilithium circuitry, which allowed for a nominal cruising speed of warp 6. The ship was capable of an extended max cruise speed of warp 8. The ship had a standard crew complement of 300. To serve the recreational needs of the crew while in isolation on deep space missions, it was equipped with at least 6 recreational areas. In these areas, there were designated areas to play 3-dimensional chess, a holographic recreation room, which was the predecessor to the holodeck. Also on board were an arboretum, a gymnasium, a bowling alley, a theater, and a chapel as well. These facilities were supplied to ease the stresses of the crew while on their journey. They also served as an area of which to bond with each other, seeing as how the only other people one could know were those that also served on the ship. Due to the isolation of its mission environment and the fact that it was one of the first capital ships of Starfleet, the ship was heavily armed. It was equipped with various phaser banks on the dorsal and ventral side of the saucer, 6 forward torpedo launchers and 1 aft, although the refit brought down the number of forward launchers to 2. The ship was also equipped with deflector shields and a deflector grid. The shields on the Constitution-class cruiser were capable of absorbing a bombardment equivalent to 360 photon torpedo detonations. All in all, the Constitution class was an important part of Starfleet's exploration and tactical missions. The original 12 cruisers expanded Federation known space to twice of what it was originally. These ships at times took part in actions that not only decided the fate of the Federation, but sometimes the whole Alpha Quadrant, the whole, while operating by themselves. As a result, it is safe to say the Constitution was one of the most successful class of ships ever created by Starfleet.